This is the Final Word Ashes Daily. Manchester, the fourth test, day one. Jeff Lemon, Adam Collins, blameless, beautiful, sunny Manchester day, as it always is. This show is brought to you by Westfield, London, Westfield, Stratford City. If they had one in Manchester, it'd be Westfield, Manchester as well. Adam Collins, day one of the test match. Tell us all about it in the space of 30 seconds.
High expectations on what was going to happen today. Australia sent in, they were going to bowl had they won the toss as well. Only losing 2 wickets in the first session, one of those Warner nicking behind after getting a start. Losing a wicket not long after lunch, that is Stephen Smith. Great review from Mark Wood. Good review later in the session as well. Mo and Ali getting Labuschagne for 51. 4 Australian players fell between 41 and 51, the first time that's ever happened in Test cricket for numbers 3 through 6. After tea, Stuart Broad picked up his 600th wicket, getting Head hooking. Woakes went bang bang late in the day, made another one for him, 4 for the day, picking up Carey just before the close for 22 for 299 for 8. Close. So scrappy, but everything should be there.
Everything is broadly there. By the way, should Pat Cummins just be relieved that he's lost 4 tosses in a row, because it's worked out pretty well for him so far.
Yeah.
They've got a reasonable score on the board, but a decent day for England as well. It was one of those nip and tuck, cut and thrust kind of days, good old-fashioned Test cricket, but it wasn't that old-fashioned. It was a decent scoring rate. It was north of 3.5 and over, but there was a partnership. Sort of seemed like almost every wicket that fell, there was a partnership that followed, something built up, and then England found a way to break through it. It was one of those really gripping days of Test cricket, because it just kept going one way then the other, one way then the other.
You can make the case either way. I reckon because rain's likely to be a factor later in the test and England bowling first, they needed all 10 to really give themselves the blank canvas they require tomorrow. The very fact that they have to bowl again is going to limit the amount of time they get to bat before they'll have to declare and go again, because that's going to have to be the game plan, I think, from England. I don't see it being a bat once, bat gigantic, win by an innings, improbable as that would be. I think it's more bat for as long as they can justify batting before bowling a second time and getting the 20 wickets they require to stay in the test match and chase whatever Australia set them, owing to the probability of Saturday having, dreadful forecast, and Sunday's not much better. So with that all in mind, kind of Australia's day. On the other side of it, your point you make, partnerships of 46, 59, 63 consecutively, then one of 65 between Marsh and Green later in the day, and 39, albeit with Stark involved with Alex Carey. None of them have gone on with it. So that means that they're in this precarious situation where 8 for 299 doesn't feel like a particularly imposing tally, but in the circumstances of the series, it might just be enough.
It was interesting the way it started off, because they didn't start off perfectly, I suppose, but then there's Stuart Broad with the intervention with Khawaja. So Broad's bowling, I found this quite interesting, the way things panned out. Warner faces first ball. He's determined to face first ball, to face Broad, as if to broadcast, if you will, but he's not worried about doing so. He's also really good at finding a run early in the over through the first sections. He keeps getting a 1 or a 3 and getting off strike. They're running well between the wickets. And Broad staying around the wicket to Khawaja, and I was watching this thinking, you've got to go over the wicket to Khawaja and have the angle. But no, Broad's right, I'm wrong, because he gets the angle coming in, and he, Khawaja's just not quite sure about what's going on with that ball coming into him.
Sort of took them a while. Like they were getting, I think it was 1.7 degrees of swing, and the CricViz stats had that as far more than what England or Australia have been generating in the first session of Tests so far in the series, but it didn't feel like they were really using it. There were lots of balls that Warner especially, but Khawaja too, at least initially before he got out, were able to let go. But when he did get it fuller and straighter to Khawaja, beaten on the inside edge, Khawaja reviewed it, but it was hitting middle stump, sort of this far down. It's a podcast, so I shouldn't be using my hands. About 2 inches down from the bails.
Use your words, Adam.
Use your words, not your hands.
Isn't that what you say to small children when they're
use your words, Winifred.
Something?
Use your words.
What do you need? What do you need?
You tell me what you need, darling. But yes, so that's what I think to me stood out. That once they got it a bit fuller, and Woakes is the perfect exponent of that. What a selection! I know that we all thought he might play a role potentially as a depth bowler, but he's more than that. He's a strike weapon. He took the second new ball late today, which is a bit of a nod to just how well he's going. And on a pitch that was nowhere near as speedy as last week's, he was more effective than Mark Wood. There's a case to be made that Woakes is their most important bowler right now.
Yeah.
I know that Broad gets 2 big wickets, Khawaja and then Head, after he set with the bumper just after tea, which was a poor shot from Head in the circumstances before he was reset. But Woakes is getting wickets consistently and asking the right questions. It's the reason why he's taken, 105 wickets at a little under 22 in England across a pretty long career in this country, because he can do that with this ball, and and that's why I think it was shrewd. And we said it last week, but it was spot on.
So they have Warner batting with Labuschagne for a while. Mark Wood doesn't bowl well in his first spell. It keeps too much down the leg side, and then the odd one wide of the off stump. They don't need to play at a lot from Mark Wood. Warner does what Warner's been doing lately, makes the start, makes 32, and at least I guess gets out taking the attacking option. He's not just prodding around at Woakes. He sees a length from Woakes that he wants to drive and goes after it, and it's a little bit too short, so he nicks. The score's on 61, hasn't taken it on huge. Then you get the Smith and Labuschagne thing, and they're starting to work into it. But Smith looked ropey today. I might come back to some of this in the Hall of Fame, but he was kind of all over the place. He was playing odd shots. He was being strangely aggressive to occasional deliveries while being defensive to other stuff. He just didn't seem like his right self.
There was 20 minutes where he got it right before lunch, where he seemed to find his tempo. He wasn't batting outlandishly, but he was batting assertively. But remember, he should have been caught first ball. I still can't quite work out why Mark Wood was so far inside the rope at fine leg, and I absolutely can't work out why Steve Smith's playing that shot first ball, knowing there's a man there for that exact stroke. Kind of a pull hook thing that comes off the top edge, and had Wood been... Well, I'm not saying Wood needed to be all the way back. That's not realistic. You always back up and walk in a little bit with the bowler. But he was so far in that he didn't have time to backpedal, stuck up one hand, and Wood's not a tall man. Even if it was Cameron Green, it probably wouldn't have stuck in the mitt. But had he been back 2 or 3 metres, it was game on for England, and it would have been 2 wickets in, 2 balls to Woakes, and Smith gone for a golden duck on the ground where he made 211 and 82 when they were here 4 years ago. So that was an odd passage of cricket. And I'm with you. Smith doesn't just look like, the parts aren't all aligning for him. Yeah, he still gets a start today, by the way, 41, but the stroke he played to get out to Wood, it was... I know he always goes across his stumps, but he was so far across his stumps, and it was way before the ball was bowled. It's all premeditated and extra moving parts with a guy bowling 93 mile an hour. I don't know. It's a question for him, really, but it feels like he's increasing the degree of difficulty on himself by doing that.
Yeah, and the pace that Wood's operating at, so people have pointed to that as the reason that he was pinned LBW. Remember, he got out to Ben Stokes like that at Edgbaston.
Sure.
Ben Stokes isn't bowling at 91 miles an hour. So it's not just about the pace, it's about the fact that he is not infallible anymore when the ball's coming in. We saw that when he played for Sussex, got out a few times like that in first class cricket as well. So Smith at 34 doesn't have the absolute pristine hand-eye coordination perhaps that Smith at 26 or 28 did have, which isn't, that's no indictment on anyone. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to happen, but maybe he needs to start adjusting the way he's playing because it's not quite working anymore. But he still has that big partnership, or in the context, big partnership with Labuschagne, who gets to a half century finally, has his breakthrough, and then plays an odd little poke across the line, misses a ball from Moeen, gets given not out. Joel Wilson not outing on these grounds, doesn't want to be putting the finger up. They review that one and it's 3 reds. Yeah,
Wilson got a good decision right later in the day, but that was the one that was overturned. 1 of 2 in the middle session, so Stokes went upstairs both for Wood on Smith and then Moeen on Labuschagne and got them both right, so credit to the captain there. Just going back to Smith for a sec. So we heard a lot from him at the start of last summer before the Windies arrived, and I think even during the one days against England about wanting to bat more next to the ball like he was in 14, 15. It's really interesting to me that something that netted him, was it a double ton against the Windies at Perth, and couldn't have looked any more fluent in that one-day series.
100 against South Africa.
100 against South Africa. That, for some reason...
It's about outswing rather than pace, because he was looking at the Windies and South Africa as being more up and down, faster bowlers on Australian pitches where it wouldn't swing as much, and so he wanted to be side on for that. And then he's worried about the ball swinging in versus the ball swinging away, trying to cover that line. And we actually saw this a couple of times today, which was interesting, where he'd have the outswinger and he would just leave it and kick it away because he knew he was outside the line of the off stump. And the one that came back in, I think, from Woakes, but he's so far outside the line.
He let it hit him on the thigh pad, didn't he?
That's right. And there was one from Labuschagne as well, where he sort of lifts the knee up and kicks the ball away as it's heading towards the stumps because he knows that he thinks that it's going over, and it turns out that he's right. But and that was a no ball as well from Stuart Broad, that one from Labuschagne. But yeah, Smith, he's coming across in order to cover that movement outside the off stump. But if it's quick and it's straight and it zips back in, well, you have to be good enough to hit it, and he always has been, but maybe he's not quite anymore.
And as for Labuschagne, you add that to the string of scores. I know he gets to 50, and you don't want to get stuck into a bloke that's done the job today by any objective measure. Out of 8 for 299, he's the top scorer. But there'll be a string now. There'll be like a stat wherein 10 of his last 16 innings, he's been out between 20 and 51, something like that. And that'll be frustrating him, that not long before tea, getting to the break, always important for a player to reset, to cool down, to go again, and he wasn't able to do that. And then straight after tea, 6 runs later, Head, who was riding shotgun with Labuschagne, they put on...
Who was just doing what he always does, which is just come out and play with freedom.
Well, they put on 63 after Smith and Labuschagne put on 59, and Warner and Labuschagne put on 46, so the pattern continued. And Head, I don't quite know how he fell into that. He was so disciplined. He walked out and they bombed him as always. Then they changed their plan. They went to plan B. They tried to nick him off. He was batting nicely. He was batting aggressively, as you'd expect when the ball's in his half. He was slapping through the offside. We even saw the cut shot for the first time in a few weeks because, of course, he's been getting very little to cut. And then Broad goes back to bouncer war strategy straight after tea, 3 men back for it, and Head tries to hook a ball that's above his helmet. The probability of him getting it to ground is so slight that low that he's got to hit it for 6 and can't beat Joe Root running in off the rope, and that's Stuart Broad's 600th Test wicket.
I imagine Stuart Broad would have been thinking about Warner being 600 once he'd got Khawaja as 599. Didn't quite work out that way. I thought Travis Head played so well early on. I mean, the second ball that he faces from Wood is a horrible one, rearing up at the face, and he gets up over it, manages to play it down. He copped one in the grill as well later on, hit him on the shoulder, he was shaping to pull and then bailed out of the shot, pulled his head away, hit the shoulder up into the grill, had the concussion checks. I mean, it was unpleasant, it was unsociable out there, and Wood was more on target in that spell. But Head's still able to score. He still finds ways to pick off runs against the shorter ball, and then when they go fuller, he does start lacing the boundaries again. A couple of those drives, really impressive shots. So he makes his contribution. He gets to 48, and then you have the rise of the machines, the Mitchell Marsh, Cameron Green standards. They come together. It's these two just massive lunks of human flesh just kind of thundering up and down the pitch. They're like, it's like War of the Worlds when the tripods come in, these kind of giants stomping through the cities, and you're like, how is this fair? It's like a bunch of rugby players came to play cricket.
Yeah, and the way Marsh, that straight arm slap he does when going down the ground twice, he's trying to hit it onto the green with the pitching wedge, but instead he's hitting them for 6. One of them went for 4, one went for 6, but the same logic applies where he knows from all his T20 cricket that even if he clunks them, they're probably going most of the way, and with mid-on and mid-off up, he's free to play that shot. And, they always say about trying to play a natural game. Well, that is these days Mitchell Marsh's natural game, and he gets to 51, the same score that Labuschagne made earlier in the day, and he's one of those 2 wickets to Woakes when he comes back for about his 4th spell and straight away asking the right questions. In the case of Green, it's leg before wicket, and then the one to Marsh that Bairstow takes, an absolute beauty. Credit to Johnny Bairstow, so much right and correct scrutiny on his wicket keeping and his spot behind the stumps. Well, he didn't look completely comfortable when he went for it, but got the hand in the right place, got the webbing in the right place, and they celebrated big time because, pulling in a blinder after all that he's put down in the first 3 Test matches will mean an awful lot to him.
Well, yeah, and he ended up sitting on the ground, punching the air, sort of like he's trying to start the lawnmower, because he took it with his glove flat on the ground. It's difficult. You've got to get down low so quickly. I will say if his footwork was better, he wouldn't have needed to do that.
Sure.
But there was that. He was wrong-footed. He was thinking the ball might be sort of coming in at him, and so his weight's going one way. Then he's got to somehow move towards his right-hand side and then get down really low. So it's difficult to do. It tends to be the way with Bairstow, is that because he doesn't move his feet much behind the stumps, he ends up having to dive for things or fall to take those low catches. He was able to fall and get the hand down. And then you've got another little partnership that takes root between Carey and Mitchell Starc, where Starc hits a few boundaries. Carey, manages to just knock the ball around a bit. They're both able to contribute to some point. So there's another partnership. Then the wickets fall again.
I thought that was maybe the most important partnership of the day. Like, Wood went through Australia and had a spell of 4 for 5 in the first innings at Leeds. Different surface, different energy, but still, after Woakes gets those 2 in a hurry, you're thinking, well, Wood down the other end. I think they overbowled him just a little bit there. They were stretching for it. And also, Carey was playing the milk the strike game. They were trying to keep Mitchell Starc, even in Wood's final spell, that last little burst he had before the second new ball, whatever they could to keep Starc away from Wood. And they did it successfully. It didn't look pretty, not taking the single 7 down with a bloke down the other end who made a Test 50 on this ground 4 years ago, and Stark's clearly a very good player. He's still there overnight, not out on 23, having faced 70 balls.
I thought that was very smart because, people were, some people were saying, oh, well, they shouldn't be doing that. I think Ricky Ponting was saying that you can't be farming the strike. It's like, okay, Wood was already in the 4th over of his spell when Mitchell Starc came to the middle. Yeah. So at that point, if you're Australia, he's not likely to bowl more than, they might keep him on for a couple extra, but that's about it. you've got one of your premier strike bowlers. Do you want them to get a broken hand because they're trying to defend the ball away from their face? Like, Mitchell Starc's fine to face whoever, he's able to bat, but is it sensible to take a risk when you know that that fastest fast bowler is going to be off shortly? Why not let them just finish what they're going to do? As the more qualified player, as Carey, why not say, look, don't worry about it, I'll just take care of Mark Wood for the next 8 balls or whatever it is that he's going to bowl, and then after that we'll bat.
Yeah, I agree with you. It made sense. It's just it looked a bit ugly at the time, because you don't expect to see someone like Starc being protected, but for the reasons you state, Wood that deep into a spell, it works for them. And look, they put on 39. At one stage they're 255 for 7, and you're thinking, well, Australia might be all out 270 odd here, but instead they'll bat again tomorrow, and as I said at the start of the podcast, it means that the window for England to bat is narrowed. If you assume that they're only going to bat for 80 odd overs and go like the clappers and try and do whatever they can to keep themselves within a puncher's chance of taking 20 wickets, because that's the game within a game here. England needs to win to stay in the series, and the challenge for them, if Australia bat maybe for another hour tomorrow, is it just limits the amount of time they can bat and the scoreboard pressure they can apply. So it's set up really, really well, and he's got Pat Cummins for company. He's 1 not out from 3 balls, and they'll return tomorrow having had a session worth 122 runs.
Could be over in 5 minutes tomorrow, the innings, or it could be 30 or 40 minutes, who knows, depending how they go early.
Time for the Final Word Hall of Fame. Final Word Hall of Fame is brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City, as it has been throughout the series so far, and we're ever so grateful for their steadfast support. We're talking this week about, well, here's the thing. If the Women's Ashes has ignited a fire in you and your kids for sports and drawn results, how's this?
Like it has for Winifred, who said to you while watching Kate Cross, I want to hit a big one.
And I just got a video from home where she's singing, he's big, he's bad, he's better than his dad. She's been watching on the telly at home,
that
clearly.
That song needs to go to Mitchell Marsh. He is much bigger than his dad. He's badder, and he's better, surely, than Jeff Marsh.
No comment. I'm not going to say that he's a better Test cricketer than his old man. Nevertheless, if women's cricket has ignited that fire in you, well, the Nike FC Rebel Girls football activation at Westfield London is on the 21st and the 22nd of July, so a couple of days' time.
It's the 19th now.
At this free event, girls can take part in fun football drills, games and challenges, and be inspired to one day become a lioness or a Matilda. How good's that? So that's at Westfield London, so the one that's over in Shepherd's Bush, on the 21st and the 22nd with Nike FC and the Rebel Girls football activation. So get involved in that. If the Women's Ashes is inspired your daughter or someone close to you to get involved in more sport, well, Westfield are helping enable that. Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City, more extra, less ordinary.
Ordinary. All right, Hall of Fame. Let's well, there was a lot of stuff that happened today. I've got to go with, well, there's a couple, but Ben Stokes with his shin incident. Down the leg side from Wood, little pull from Labuschagne, just gets maybe the sticker of the bat, maybe a bit of glove on it. It flies at leg slip. Stokes tries to get it, smashes him right in the shin, which is, and I was trying to figure out, why is it funny? Like, it's always funny to whoever's watching on if a player gets hit in the box or hit in the shin. If you get hit almost anywhere else, get hit in the elbow or something, then usually we're sympathetic. We're like, oh, that would hurt. Hit in the shin, you're like, ha ha ha, right in the shin. And I think the bit that was funny particularly was that it took his leg out from under him, so he sort of loses his right leg and almost falls on his face after getting hit. And even Stokes comes up with a big smile on his face. He's like, ow, that really hurts. And also it's funny. Why is it funny? Why is the shin funny?
I've got a few things. Well, first of all, Stuart Broad, 600 Test wickets, the second seamer to do it. Nice that he was doing it from the James Anderson end, who's the only other seamer with that many Test wickets. When Anderson played his 166 Test match, he had 632 wickets. So there's always been a thing about Broad being behind Anderson, but not by that far, and Anderson didn't take a wicket today. I love Stuart Broad's work, though, mostly when there was that long delay, which happened 2 balls before Warner was dismissed. We missed out on that earlier, but a 10-minute delay when there was something shining from not above the sight screen but underneath the sight screen.
It was off the seats. There were metal bars between the seats, and they were glinting at a level that was going right at Labuschagne's eyes, and Mark Wood was bowling from that end.
And fair enough that they had to stop to fix it. Not the first time we've seen weird things stop play here.
Well,
like
remember Stuart Broad with the shiny bit on the sight screen in 2013-14?
I do, and I remember here, well, in 1995, the Windies England, they had to go off for sun. It was too bright to continue playing when the pitch was turned around the other way. Anyway, on this occasion, Stuart Broad went down to the crowd and tried to construct a solution of his own. He tried to get the patrons to to all move up 3 rows to sit in front of it. And he said to them, and don't worry, if we get David Warner out, you can all move back to where you were sitting. Thought that's classic Broad. Knows the cameras are on, knows exactly what he's doing.
Also, he went past Ian Botham today for wickets against Australia.
149 of them.
He's the all-time wicket taker against Australia, which would really boil the piss of some people at certain tabloid newspapers in Australia. For instance, the fact that Stuart Broad is the most successful bowler against Australia ever.
That little factoid I mentioned off the top, a Sampson one. So Smith 41, Labuschagne 51, Head 48, Marsh 51. So 3, 4, 5, 6, all falling between 41 and 51. That's never happened in Test cricket.
Wow.
So thank you, Andrew Sampson, for that. And how about Steve Smith doing a bit of DIY in his shirt?
Yeah.
Daniel Breddig and Andrew Wu picked up on this. It looks like Smith's been cutting his own shirt sleeves. Do what you want.
Okay.
You do you.
You're Steve Smith, you do what you want. What he did today is he went past Alan Border for runs scored by a visiting player in England. So, Donald Bradman is the only player with more runs in England, the only overseas player to come to England and make more Test runs than Steve Smith.
Very good.
He's only about 500 behind the Don, mind you, so he probably won't be back again, but if he did come back again, he might catch him.
I think that's it. Our show's brought to you by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. It is the Final Word Daily. If you like what we do, join Patreon, as so many people have done through the summer, and we love them for it. That gets you half-price tickets to our live show on the 26th of July with Stephen Finn. Still tickets on sale in Soho at the Phoenix. There are some, though, so if you want to get one very soon. All the information for that is in our show notes, and you can watch Stephen Finn go through his paces with us the night before the Oval Test match. Stumps Day 1, done here, Australia, 8 for 2.99.
See ya.